Hey, good morning, Shannon Waller.
Good morning, Mark Westcott. Nice to see you again.
It is so good to see you again. For those who came in late, on Monday, the 30th of March, we ran our first tea and scones, and it was Shannon and me way back then. And Shannon encouraged me to just kick this off and turn it into something on a weekly basis because it was kind of the start of COVID, and it was all about positivity, gratitude, and helping kick off a week on the right foot when everyone was sitting at home locked up and so on. And it's kind of got there. So thank you, Shannon, for encouraging me to do that. And I've just interviewed. I've lost count actually of how many people I've interviewed over that period of time. But I'm really excited to have you back on today. And I thought it was appropriate and time. And those that don't know, Shannon is kind of like 2IC or 2 or 3IC at Strategic Coach over in America and Canada, and she's just a wealth of information, knowledge. Has written books, does podcasts with Dan Sullivan all the time, and I don't know how to tell people how good you are, Shannon. So maybe you should.
Well, hopefully they'll know after a couple minutes if there's useful information. And I just want to. I actually think it's interesting. It's actually evening here, and it's Sunday evening here in Toronto, which is where I'm beaming in from. And I think actually your message, Mark, of positivity and connection and looking forward is super important. I mean, we're kind of past the hopeful phase of COVID, and now we really have to dig in. Here, the days are shorter, nights are longer, that kind of thing. A bit different for you, thank goodness. And so I think that how to really sustain yourself, how to remain positive, how to look ahead is a really critical and important message. So kudos for being one of the good voices in the wilderness, I think, to help people stay focused on their growth and their future and what they do have versus what they don't have. I think that's really really critical for a lot of people right now. So thanks for having me back.
Oh, look, it's so you're such a great friend, Shannon. I've known you for years,
Mhm.
20 something years, I guess. So it's just great to have you here. It's funny when you say that the days are shorter, the nights are longer. I just about broke into song. That's an Eagles song, isn't it? That
I think
comes
it
from.
is.
The days are shorter. I'm
That's
not going
right.
to sing. I'm not going to sing. I
Me
promise.
either. No, you're safe
But
for now.
but it's interesting because I'm sitting here and I think it's going to be 38 degrees centigrade here today. As you can see behind me, the sun is shining. The beach is lovely. And tell me about the weather outside your window.
Well, we're having a November storm, and there's always usually a couple of super gusty events where it knocks all of the dead leaves off the trees, and today's one of them. So there's already been a couple microbursts up at our cottage, which is a vacation property on a lake. Yeah, I have to explain
Yep,
to Americans.
just up there.
And you guys have cottages, and so the power's out up there right now in parts of it, and so 90 to 100 kilometer an hour winds is what's happening. So kind of like batten down the hatches. Apparently, one of our neighbors posted on a local Facebook group that someone's eaves trough just landed in my yard. So it's one of those nights. If you're not battened down, you're probably being blown off your feet. So that's what's happening. It's not that cold. It's above zero, thank goodness. But it's a blustery November night in Canada.
You are just an Eagles nut. One of those nights you've just said. So I mean, there's another Eagles song. So just stop
I
it.
always think of blustery as being Winnie the Pooh, actually, but yes.
No. Anyway, look, it's great to chat to you. Obviously, if I was up there, my little Cessna would be tucked away, and I wouldn't be going anywhere today. Is that right? So
No, yesterday you would have been fine. Today, not so much.
not so much. No, as you've probably seen, I've been travelling around the state. We're sort of locked into our states at the moment, so I've been travelling around, seeing lots of people and having a great time with rural succession solutions. But before we go into, because today I've asked you to talk about Dan Sullivan's new book, Who Not How, and but I just want to talk about what's happening with. You can show. Come on.
There we go. Let's go here. There you go.
Who Not How. Oh, that's fantastic. And Dan must be so excited about that too. I mean,
yeah, he really is. I just saw a post last night. We're past 80,000 in sales, and his goal was 50,000 by the end of the year. So it's doing really, really well. Kindle, and I'm listening to the audiobook right now, which is written in Benjamin Hardy's. Well, it's read in his voice. He's read it with interviews with Dan. So it is so fun. it's a brilliant book. So I can't wait to talk about it.
Well, I can't hold up mine because I bought the Kindle version. Well, I suppose
Yeah.
I could, but I bought the Kindle version. But I may move to audio books because I just have all these Kindle books that are just still on my iPad and are unread. So, but I have great intentions. So I'm going to actually, and you inspired me with Breathe, and
Best book, Breath. It's actually, I called it
Breath.
Breathe. It's actually Breath by James
Oh,
Nestor.
yep.
For anyone who's not seen it or glanced at it, I had a chance to watch an interview with him. He was a highlight of Genius Network at Joe Polish, and it's just one of the most mind-blowing books I've read. And I read a lot, and I curate. I don't pass on everything I read, but fascinating. The history of breath, his own story. He's a journalist and a researcher, and it's the new science of a lost art, and how important breathing is, and how many of us struggle, and how we've evolved, and not always in positive ways in terms of breathing. So yes, I'm glad. And he read it quite beautifully, didn't he?
Well, I actually got halfway through. Look, being a 2 fact find and a 10 quick start, as you know, I took the book with me in my earpods when I had a week's free time recently, and when I was doing long walks, I was listening to it, and I just thought I've got to learn to turn up the speed to 1.5 or 2 or something like that, because I need a shortened version of it, because it's fascinating information. I'm probably halfway through it, so I haven't got to all the good bits at the end yet. But I tell you what, it's making me really conscious when I'm out walking and so on. Breathe through the nose, not the mouth. Yeah. And it's fascinating the difference that it makes to cultures and individuals and so on. So I know we're getting off topic, but just another fabulous book.
Well, I love sharing great resources, and these are two to the books we're talking about. For anyone who wants this super fast bottom line of breath, it's nostril breathing good, mouth breathing bad, and slow breathing good, fast breathing bad. There's all sorts of other detail about that, but if you really those are my 2 main takeaways. My husband and I have been like taping, and everyone who heard him talk went and bought every possible breathing. Oh, it's pretty funny. But it's pretty inspiring. But just on the Audible thing for a moment, I'm someone who loves to read, but I'm finding I'm not stationary very much, and sitting down feels hard to do, to read. So I'm actually, as of this week, I've decided I'm in love with audiobooks, because I can, while I'm doing other things, even though I'm not driving a ton, I can absorb the information. So I'm walking my dog or doing exercising, whatever. It's a way to get really valuable information, and I'm really enjoying it. So I'm a hardcore reader, but it's been one of my new strategies for keeping myself engaged and I was going to say entertained, but more educated. And that's important to me.
Well, that's right. And you can, my daughter Angela keeps telling me, Dad, wind up the speed. If it's taking too long, just make it go faster. You can.
I normally have it about 1.2, sometimes 1.5. I had to slow it back down to 1 for Benjamin, because he talks as fast as I do. So he's one of the only people I listen to at 1.0 speed.
Hey, quickly before we go into the book, Shannon, I need to ask you, tell me what's happening with Coach, because with all the travel restrictions and so on, obviously there's no Australians going over to America, there's no Canadians going down to the world. Are there any workshops at the moment, or is it 100% virtual?
It's 100% virtual. So Toronto and Chicago are 2 of the main places in Canada and the US that we do workshops. And they're both under super major, more restrictions than we've had in the past few months. So no, there are no live workshops. You cannot have gatherings of more than 10. And in fact, I think that's even as of yesterday been cut down even more. So no, there are no live workshops. However, we are doing virtual workshops, and I am frankly loving the Zoom experience. We've also enhanced our connections in between the quarters. And anyone listening who has a business, you've definitely had to move at least part of your business to being virtual. Even I know in the medical profession, they're doing even dentists are able to move part of their practices and their visits with people to virtual, which I think is kind of incredible.
I'll do the dentist thing via virtual, because I can't stand going to the dentist.
I know most people can't. Like, we do the whole thing virtual, and they're like, not quite, but a lot of it. And I wish take the drill away. Virtual drills, that would be good. And but so we're doing all virtual, but we're also connecting with people a lot more and more frequently. And sometimes we have a full workshop day, 6 hours, not 8. And then we have these 2-hour sessions that are available. And so the sense of community, and as for entrepreneurs, it can be very lonesome, especially if you're,
especially now,
pivoting and other people are kind of like treading water. So you want to be around other people who are like-minded and moving ahead. So I'm finding that for not everyone is adapting easily or quickly, but a lot of people are, and the ones who are we're just having a blast. So I'm actually loving, surprisingly, as someone who's on a plane almost as much as you, I'm really surprised by how much I'm enjoying the virtual experience, and I love coaching in it too. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, once more, just before we go on to Who Not How, Shannon, Dan does a new book every quarter.
Yep.
The smaller versions of the one we're going to talk about today, and you are the person that sort of unbundles the whole experience and interviews Dan and creates the video and the audio that goes with those books, which I always find just as valuable, if not more, than the actual books themselves. So. Yeah, actually, they're only tiny. What does Dan call them? A Toronto, Chicago read or something?
Yeah,
you can read it in an hour and a half.
In about an hour. They're very succinct, though, and so as he said, he's not the one to write a mass market book. Benjamin Hardy was the one to do that, but it's all started by the little quarterly books that we do. Yeah.
Yep. That's good. Look, time's getting on, so I'd love you to dive a bit more deeply into Who Not How, because it's such a great book. I mean, the whole concept is life-changing. So do you want to, you've put together a presentation which we're going to share with everyone. So would you like to do that now?
Absolutely. Well, let me just set up a little bit. One of the ways that this whole thing came about is Dan was doing a podcast with his friend, Dean Jackson, and colleague and client. And they have this Joy of Procrastination podcast now called Cloudlandia, which is another Dean Jackson term. He's the one who said, one of the causes of procrastination for me is that when I go to accomplish a goal, often I start to procrastinate if I think about how, but I figured out a way out of it if I focus on who. And so that's where Who Not How came to be. And so with that, I will kick off my presentation.
Well done.
Well done, pretty brilliant point. So let me just do that. And I will,
if I may, while you're lining that up, it's actually interesting, because what Dean did was he did a Who Not How as well, didn't he? Because he needed someone like Dan to take that concept and that phrase and turn it into a whole concept and a book and now
he really
a masterpiece.
Yeah, he 100% did. Let me start on the right slide. That might be helpful. So there we go. And
you have to share that.
You guys see it? Can you see it all right?
Yeah, you haven't shared it yet, so.
Oh.
You need to share your screen and then I'll add it in.
Yes, I'm used to a slightly different platform, so bear with me. Okay, so
I know.
Share screen. And let me just see if I can see if that
You did it so well in practice.
Well, it took a few tries, my friend. That was very generous of you. All right, so this is the book, and the subtitle is interesting. It's the formula.
I still can't see it, Shannon. It hasn't come up as
let me try
sharing.
Does that work? Is that working?
No, but if worst comes to worst, I actually have a copy here.
Why don't you take over, darling? Because I've tried all my tricks.
Okay, so if everyone could please just bear with me 1 second, and I'll share my screen, and here we go. Application window is this one. Share, and
perfect.
I will go back in here and actually make it full screen, and off you go. Tell me when to press the buttons.
I will totally do that. So one of the things that I really like about this is and I'm someone who's passionate about teamwork, especially what we call unique ability teamwork. It really is the formula to achieve bigger goals through accelerating teamwork. So a lot of times people think delegation is horrible, time consuming, get a lesser result, just something they would rather avoid like the plague. This is actually about how to make it a winning formula. In fact, be able to have a bigger future and expand what's possible as a result of focusing on who, not how. So it's the level of teamwork I like to talk about, only captured very succinctly, which I love. So let's go on to the next quote, which is really kind of fun. And I talked about procrastination just to cue this up. The number one cause of procrastination is ambition. if you were not ambitious, if you did not have bigger and better goals, then there's nothing to procrastinate on. You just keep doing what you're doing and you're completely fine. So I think one of the things we tend to beat ourselves up a lot for procrastinating. I'm not sure if you can hear the wind outside right now. It's pretty loud. But
it's all good.
That's good. But the thing about like ambitious people, we tend to beat ourselves up because we run into an obstacle. We start thinking about all the hows and we're like, ugh, that's so much work. And it's an incredibly common experience. Dan and Dean were talking about the fact that it's one of the most common experiences in every culture is procrastinating. So this is true of any growth-oriented, growth-minded human, is that we all have this experience of procrastination. So the definition is you come up with a new, better vision of what's possible, but you don't have the capability to pull it off. So you put it off. Raise your hand if that's true. It really is. I know exactly. Both hands, legs, arms, the whole deal. So what we decided was, and this is a fun cartoon version, which is why I was excited that I had this presentation to share with you. So you think about you, and then you think about the fact that you have a bigger and better future that you want to accomplish. And again, this is you being ambitious here. And ambitious is a good word at Coach, not a bad word. But then as soon as you start to focus in on the how, then you start, because that's the normal thing. How am I going to go about doing this? Then you'll notice that you actually start to feel a sense of kind of lack of energy. So if you hit the next slide, Mark, you know, you kind of, I'm glad I'm not the only one struggling with this. And you know, there's a sense of increasing fatigue and failure. You get tired, you get stressed. So that's the next slide again, Mark. And then perfect. And you kind of get discouraged, and this goes on forever. You can get depressed. People actually stop setting larger goals because of it, which is never a happy circumstance. They can get defeatist and go, well, you know, I'll just see what happens. That's not what we want to happen to everybody. So instead, if you actually focus on the who, then, and by the way, the who you're looking for is someone who is already skilled at that how. Now, there's a whole course we could probably put together on how to find the right who's and all the rest of it. Not to say that isn't challenging, but I'm going to give you a little secret to make that easier. But before we get to the end, then all of a sudden you have this sense of increasing energy. You're like, oh my gosh, they can help me. They already know this. They're better at it than I am. Together, we can accomplish even more. And this is really, really exciting. And we're just demonstrating with one arrow and the rest of it. And the next arrow is actually that person's doing the how, which is pretty exciting. And then you actually accomplish your goal. And you're actually have more energy because you're not being drained by things that you're not good at. You don't get fatigued. And so just a quick story about this. So I'm someone, I want to explain how I could actually make the star there get bigger as we go through this, because the more you do this, and this is a point that really Benjamin brought out really brilliantly in the book, is the size of your future gets better. It gets bigger. So he's published 3 books. Willpower Doesn't Work, Procrastinate. What was the second book? Personality Isn't Permanent. And then the third one, which is Who Not How with Dan. And he said he tried to do all of the marketing, all the podcasts, all the rest of it for willpower didn't work. And there's something called decision fatigue. And he was counting on his willpower, which he knows doesn't work, to actually do all the marketing. This is the part I was just listening to. And so for this book, well, then his second book, Personality Isn't Permanent, he hired a who. And I think, well, I can't remember if it was Whitney or Connie, but one of the two. And his goal was to do 200 podcasts in the year. She did that in 1 quarter. She set up 200. Wow. So his goals all of a sudden got a heck of a lot bigger because she loved it. She was willing to do all the arrangements. She would wake up every day. He wanted to do the podcast. Can he talk about Personality Isn't Permanent or Who Not How? Yes, he can. But doing all the back and forth logistics, all the negotiation, all that stuff, by the time he would get to the podcast, he was exhausted. And so that to me is a fun example of just how, you know, his goals got bigger, and then the goal was like 600 podcasts, which is kind of fun. And that's their goal for 2020, as a matter of fact. I know that when I started working with my brilliant strategic support partner, Nicole, you know, my productivity doubled, if not tripled, because she was doing all the pre-work to my event, which could be a phone call, a coaching session, a speech, whatever. And she would also do all the post stuff, the stuff that I'm frankly not good at, because my Kolbe profile is very similar to yours. So my mental energy for those types of activities is short, is low, but hers also is huge. But she doesn't like doing what we're doing right now. This would be exhausting for her. So all of a sudden, what I could conceive of accomplishing got so much bigger when I started my partnership with her, which is now 7.5 years. And I give gratitude every day for that teamwork.
Absolutely. And it's the good question is a matter of how you find the who, isn't it? Because they're life changing.
They are life changing. And what is really interesting is one of the questions in terms of finding a good who is what gets in the way of finding a good who or attracting. Let's use that terminology. And it's interesting what prevents that from happening is a lack of clarity about what you want. And so one of our tools that I'm going to walk through quickly, and this is kind of the quick version of it. And by the way, this is all available. These resources are available at whonothow.com. So if you want to order books, if you want to download this, what we call the impact filter, this is a short version of it. Whonothow.com is absolutely the place to get all those goodies. And we'll put a slide up at the end about that too. And so this is what we call the fast filter. So one of the ways to attract really good, talented people is to be really, really clear on what the bigger and better vision is. And a lot of times we're not good at that. We either keep it too close to the vest, or we are confused ourselves. We're not sold on the idea. Really tough to sell someone else if you're not sold or convinced that this is a brilliant thing to do. But once you put it out there and share, and we all have very capable networks that we can do this with, it's pretty incredible. So I chose a strategic assistant, which is one of the terms came up with a million years ago. Everyone wants an assistant, but they're all scared usually. What you really want is a strategic assistant. And they just leverage you like nobody's business. It's profound the impact that person can have. So what you want to
am so excited. I'm just so excited that you've chosen this as the example.
Oh, good.
Sharon, because 99.9% of the entrepreneurial world, this is exactly what they need, and it's exactly what they don't have.
Right.
And so this is a great example.
Well, here's a great expression. If you're not convinced of this, and I can't take credit for this. I wish I could, but here's a great sentence to remember. If you don't have an assistant, you are one. Right?
I love that. And
for some of us doing those activities, we're actually the worst possible version of an assistant, and we're incredibly highly paid. Like no one would actually hire us to be an assistant, Mark. We would be complete and utter.
We'd last half a day.
If that. Oh my goodness.
I've seen your profile, your Kolbe profile.
And yours, my friend. So, hire somebody who actually loves to do it, is brilliant at it, and reward them well, obviously, but let them do what they do really well. Micromanaging is another good way to repel good people. So what you want to do is you want to really do the project purpose. And this includes what is it? Why is it important? What the best version of it is, and get really, really clear on the best result. So you you have a project purpose, and that's kind of your intellectually buying into what it is you want. Then you need to emotionally buy in. And I think this is a really interesting part of the whole impact fast filter process, is you want to sell yourself on this. And if you can't write a really good best result or worst result, I would put this one aside. This is why it's called a filter, because not all the ideas make it through. So the best result, for example, is highly capable, motivated A player, which is a Dr. Brad Smart term, focused on, let's see if I can read this, taking our teamwork to the next level. I feel supported, connected, and protected. Meet weekly to keep focused on the right projects that have a big impact versus all the distractible ones. Complete ownership over my calendar. I'm freed up for new business growth.
Yep,
that's
perfect.
I'm told. Now, what is the worst result? And there's two versions. There are two versions of the worst result. One is if you do not take action. If you don't take action, it's the status quo. And that means you're lumbering along. You're not making exponential progress. You might be making some incremental progress, but you're increasingly getting worn down by the activities that, frankly, you're probably not best suited to do. And you're not getting to the new business development. You're not bringing in new business opportunities. You're not, feeding the pipeline. And there's a cost to that. So really being clear on the cost of not taking action is key. or, you know, a worse result if you do take action but don't do it well. And I actually like to articulate both of those in mind. So our example here is I fall into micromanaging, lack of trust, don't allow them the opportunity to work in their best strengths, don't give clear direction up front. Well, this person's already stacked the odds in their favor just by doing a fast filter. You know, what's the other one? Expect
them to read your mind.
My mind, not comfortable and confident protecting my time or focus. So it's kind of a fail, right? But just getting it out on paper actually allows you to usually calm down about it, because we have all these undefined fears in our mind. Yeah. So then the last step here is success criteria. And this is how I define it. It's how you ensure the best result and prevent the worst from happening. This tool, by the way, is brilliant for everything. Anytime you want to get clear, I started sending this out before I do my podcast book interviews, because I realize I know what I want people to say. Sometimes they don't know. So I use this tool for almost everybody, personally as well. So success criteria, scheduling ninja. Well, I first used that term with Nicole, by the way, and she goes, I'm not really a ninja. Just saying. I stole this one from Tony Shea, who's CEO of Zappos, by the way. She goes, yep. I said, let's find different terms. She goes, how about scheduling goddess? I'm like, perfect. That sounds great. That's hers. Completely organizes and protects my time. Strategic partner, you know, filters out issues that don't require my specialized attention. Resourceful, adaptable, strong communication skills, friendly and approachable. And so once you lay that out, I want people they're like even more excited. And then you lay that out for someone, they're like, okay, that's not me, or that is me. But often you've just simplified what could have been hours and hours of conversation. And probably, well, I usually have people fill out a fast filter in about 5 minutes. If you wanted to tweak it, maybe 7, right? So if we just trust our own thinking, it's kind of incredible what can come out with a fast filter.
Shannon, if I can just cut in for a second there, because what this, the greatest issue, certainly in my business with clients and so on, between families, it's all about communication. Is where all the problems in the world start, is the lack of communication. And the great thing about this impact filter, fast filter that you're calling this one here, is that when you sit, it actually gets out of your head in a formatted way what it is you're really trying to achieve. And in fact, you've just given me an idea. I need to use this in my succession planning work with my clients. In fact, why haven't I been doing that? Well, there's a idea. The other thing the point is just to finish off is that, you know, when you're looking at interviewing your potential strategic assistant, having those 5 things down on the right hand side, that's what they have to be. So they know exactly how you're going to judge them, how you're going to reward them.
Exactly. And Gallup, most people are probably familiar with Gallup, sorry about that, is, you know, one of the biggest dissatisfactions for team members is not knowing what's expected of them. You have just 100% completely addressed this when you are really, really clear. And the last thing about the impact filter, and I'm sorry, I was inspired, didn't mean to interrupt you, is that I always feel smarter and clear at the end of filling it out. You know, this is not a form. This is a thinking tool to help you get your best. And so at the end of it, I'm like, oh, that is what I want. So I go in thinking, like, trying to figure it out. And at the end, I'm like, wow, this is exactly what I want. And then I'm even more confident about putting that idea out to the world. So I have to tell you, putting some of this stuff in a job description or an ad or LinkedIn, great tool to use to do that. So if you want to check out the resources, just the last slide here, Mark, is just Who Not How. Okay. There is, now it's in North American time zone, but on, be tomorrow your time, Tuesday my time, which is Wednesday your time, I think. They're actually doing there are some special things. There's some cool presentations that Ben and Dan are doing together. But anyway, whonothow.com is where you can really check out all the goodies, especially if this is kind of an inspiring thought process for you. Here's the deal. Everyone's already done it a couple of times. It's probably worked really well, but you may not have highlighted this particular experience, and this will really shine a light on what you probably already intuitively or instinctively know works, but it's really fleshing out that idea, and I think it'll resonate with a lot of people.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So now do you want to remove that now, or are you happy to leave it up there?
That's all the goodies.
Okay. all the goodies. So whonothow.com. You know that as you were going through that, I was giving myself, as they say, an uppercut for not including the impact filter as part of my process with clients, because I was looking at it and I was thinking, this is what clients need.
Yeah.
What is life going to look like if they go through the process with me and we sort out all their succession planning, estate planning, and so on? What's the worst result if they don't do anything and all the kids are fighting, squabbling, contesting wills, arguing over money, and so on? And get the clients to actually list down the 5 or 6 things that they think are going to be important to end up with a great result. And I spent all those years at Coach, and I haven't incorporated this in my process. So,
but you know what, Mark?
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's through conversation and talking, I find that those aha moments happen. Like, I know all the tools, and sometimes I'm like, oh, why haven't I done it? You know, an impact filter on this. Whereas, you know, and our thinking tools are like one of those screwdrivers with multiple heads in them. You can use them for a lot of different things. But sometimes it's until we're in conversation with people, we're like, oh my gosh, yes, I could do it that way. So I think that's the value of, there's knowledge, but then there's applying it to our circumstances, to the people we really care about having an impact with. So that's pretty normal. I get inspired in my workshops and I'm like, oh, why didn't I think of that before? But the truth is, it comes out of the magic of this, which you've created the platform for that to happen.
Oh, you're too kind, but you're absolutely right. And when and with the Zoom calls you're doing for your coach meetings these days and all the in-between things, the guys being able to talk to each other is where the magic is coming from too, isn't it?
100%. Yeah.
You know, I often used to think in the, you know, when I was over there in Chicago and so on at the meetings, and it was always in the breakout sessions. I mean, you get the tools. I mean, Dan would present the material, and then someone would say something in one of the breakout sessions, and you go, wow, yep, you know, that's, well, you can do it that way. That's what you've been doing, and it works. Well, you know, we'll take that away. So, but it's fantastic. But look, I don't want to stop early, and I know we're over 30 minutes, but it doesn't matter, Shannon. It's just such a joy, and I love the energy when you and I get together. You just bring so much to the table. So thank you for coming along today. Your nighttime over there for you, and I hope tomorrow the house hasn't blown away.
Well, I think I'm good. I think I'll be all right. But anyway, lovely to see you, Mark. This year, last year, this time, we were planning our fabulous trip to Australia that we were able to actually see you in person after a number of years. So I'll be looking down my photos from last year and remembering very fondly our trip to Australia. So thanks for letting me visit.
Hey, great to see you again, and all the best. Have a great end of year, and no doubt we'll talk to you again in 2021, Shannon. Thanks for your time today.
That sounds good. Thank you so much, Mark.
See you, sweetie. Bye.
Bye.